Xtreme 4x4, and surely you guys recognize this yellow Jeep CJ7 as Project Cheap Jeep. Now, it's been kicking around the Xtreme shop for a couple years now, and today it's back for its final upgrade.
If you remember, this project started as a bone stock '82 Jeep in desperate needs of some serious upgrades to make it through the trails. And it all started with the popular spring-over axle conversion.
Then the axles were torn down and quick locks installed both front and rear, as well as a set of 35-inch boggers mounted on steel wheels with rock stomper beadlock kits welded to the outside.
Then it was time to hit the trail. Now the little CJ actually did really well out on the trail, excluding some small complications with having a manual transmission.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. And since the truck was right on the borderline of becoming a hardcore crawler, the obvious upgrade next was going to be an automatic tranny.
Oh. Now some of you guys didn't want us to take out the standard transmission right along with me, but I lost the bet. Automatic went in, along with some 4-to-1 gears in the transfer case.
And then we brought the Jeep back in the shop one more time and treated it to a set of Hansen bumpers, both front and rear. And today is the last page in this book. It's going to be 2 new axles on the cheap.
Now keeping it old school style, we're going to be putting a Ford 9-inch in the rear and a high pinion Dana 44 up front. And you ready to get to work?
By we mean me.
Now we put this Jeep together just like you guys would at home, in stages. And when you get this far and you've gone hardcore in every other part, it's honestly time to upgrade the axles. We knew these were the weak links up front and rear, but this '82 CJ7 will be a hardcore crawler once it's got some beefy axles.
Now there was a time when 4-link suspension, air shocks, and coilovers were not the norm. 20 years ago, our little CJ7 would be considered cutting edge. And a cutting edge move back then would be to swap in a Ford full-width 9-inch under the rear end. The 9-inch will allow you to upgrade to a super strong axle assembly and not have to get new wheels, since the bolt pattern on the axle flange is the same as the stock CJ, 5 on 5.5. This 9-inch came from the local junkyard for $150, and it's going to go under our CJ at full width, 62.5 inches. With the housing stripped down, it's just a matter of slipping in some new spring perches and bolting the axle under the Jeep. Now the Ford 9-inch has a removable third member, and that's another reason why this axle is so popular. You can buy a dropout third member from aftermarket companies with a locker or spool and gears already set up, shipped to your door. Now that's a little bit harder on the pocketbook, and to save money, you can look around and find these used. Now the 9-inch has been used in racing applications for years, so if you get lucky, you can usually find a half-decent gear set and a locker or spool for sale online. It'll save you a little bit of money. For our cheap Jeep, we're going to be welding up the spiders to give us full lock all the time. And then swap in a set of Precision Alloy USA 514-to-1 gears. When you're in the junkyard getting your axle, grab an extra third member from another 9-inch to toss underneath your workbench. That way, when money allows for it, you can rebuild it with a different locker and swap it into your rig with no downtime. Now I'm sure you've noticed that we're putting this axle back into the housing without the drum brake setup in place. And that's for good reason. Drum brakes have a tendency to pack up with mud and dirt when they're off-road. So we're going to want to change this over to a disc brake setup. But because we're building this axle on the cheap, it means we're going to have to do some creative fabrication. 3 different sets of brake rotors to try. A Dodge half-ton, a Ford half-ton, and a stock CJ7 front, all because they have the 5 on 5.5 bolt pattern, just like our truck. Now they all fit over the studs, but we will have to grind the axle flange to make our final choice fit. Now the caliper is off the front end of an 85 Chevrolet 3/4 ton pickup truck, and the bracket is from Blue Torch Fabworks. Now all in all, we have less than $100 into our rear disc brake setup. We do have one issue though, and that is that the indexing ring on the axle flange is smaller than that on the rotor. Now this can cause the rotor to knock against the studs every time we hit the gas and the brakes, and it can eventually wear them out and cause them to fail. If this was going to be a daily driver on the street, we'd want to go ahead and have that axle flange machined to fit that indexing ring on the rotor. But because this is just a trail truck, it'll be fine, and we're going to run it just as it is.
Later on, our CJ hits the trail. But up next, the Truck and Jeep Fest has got it all. Mud bogging, bikini contest, and lots of diehard fans. We'll take you there next.
So just where is the truck and Jeep capital of the world? We found it in a sleepy little farming community halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, where one weekend each summer the sounds of are replaced with this area has a Jeep history nearly half as old as the brand itself. 30 years ago, the first four-wheel drive hardware store opened here.
The business was founded by a gentleman by the name of Tom Kennedy, and he literally started a business so that he could find Jeep parts for himself and his friend, and it grew into the largest mail order catalog and internet business for Jeeps in the world.
And now they've teamed with four-wheel parts and the four-wheel jamborees to create an event like no other. Yeah, there was something for everyone at the Canfield, Ohio Truck and Jeep Fest, including the first look at BF Goodrich's replacement for their popular mud terrain, the new KM2.
Who wants a t-shirt?
And with $50,000 worth of prizes to be given out, my co-host helped spread the wealth. Hats and t-shirts? Come on, Ian, you can do way better than that.
Okay, Xtreme 4x4 trivia, are you ready?
Yeah.
At the 2006 Indianapolis four-wheel jamboree, my dream came true when I got to drive a monster truck for the first time. What monster truck was it? Was it the Gravedigger? Was it Bigfoot? Or was it the Raminator? What's your guess?
I'm gonna go with Raminator.
Oh, that's right. Let us see. Tell him what he won, Jeff.
Zachary, you've just won body protection for your truck or Jeep from Smitty Build, valued at $500.
Sweet.
Now you got to build a whole truck around those two bumpers.
I can do that.
And I'll even give you the stickers.
Sweet.
Okay, Cassie, ready? Your Xtreme 4x4 trivia question is, name the 2004-2005 host of the Power Block on Spike TV. Is it A, Jesse Combs, B, Paris Hilton, C, Michelle Spaziano, or D, the IndyCar racer Danica Patrick? What's your answer?
D.
D. D is correct. That's right. You've won a lovely set of Pro Comp gloves to wear so you don't get your hands dirty while you're working on your truck.
Thank you.
Those are nice gloves, aren't they?
Yes.
Actually, Cassie, you've won a MagnaFlow catback exhaust system with a retail value of $600.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
In season 1 of Xtreme 4x4, something very unexpected happened during the initial build of the CJ7 cheap Jeep. I'm sure you watched that episode.
Yes, I did.
Here's your three choices. A, a leaf spring broke, knocking me unconscious. B, the truck was driven off the RTI ramp and broke the front shock mount. Okay. C, Jesse was rushed to the hospital for an emergency appendectomy.
That's a good one.
What's your answer?
I say C.
He goes with C. All right, well, here you are. You win that. You see, actually, right now you think you won a license plate,
Great.
but really you've won
A K&N Cold Air Kit, high-performance intake system for your truck or SUV. Retail value $250.
Oh, great. That's great. I appreciate that. Wow.
All right, good stuff, man.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Reed and his girlfriend Sarah for Xtreme 4x4 trivia for the Pro Comp hat. Are you ready? Here's your question. In the final Ranger Resurrection show, what led to the front end completely falling out of the truck? Was it A, no hydraulic fluid in the steering box, B, Play-Doh used instead of poly bushings, or C, a subgrade bolt that shattered, sending the front link into the oil pan?
C.
C, you are right. You will get this beautiful Pro Comp hat.
Thank you very much.
But you know what would go really well with that Pro Comp hat?
What's that?
Okay, I think we're gonna give you a complete set of Pro Comp tires, wheels, a 6-inch suspension system, and a Warren power plant winch worth about $6,000. What do you think of that?
Oh my God.
Yes, Reed, your Jeep will now crawl over the competition with this complete wheel and tire package. 4-inch Stage 2 suspension system, all from ProComp. Plus Warren's new power plant winch with onboard air compressor. Congratulations!
Thank you very much. Oh man. I never thought that would happen.
Everything that I gave away today was courtesy of 4-Wheel Parts and Xtreme 4x4. We'll be back right after this.
This Extreme Tech Tip is brought to you by Mobile One, providing advanced protection against extreme heat and stress.
Now the hardest part about reusing these junkyard C's that you cut off your axle housing is that you have to heat them up before you slide them on the tube. They're press fit. But you don't want to heat them with a torch or the heat input can get too localized and you can warp it. So here's a tip for you. Throw it on the old barbecue grill, let it sit on there for about 10-15 minutes until it gets up to about 400 degrees. And the best thing is, you can do double duty and make your lunch at the same time. Oily.
Welcome back to Xtreme 4x4 and the final upgrade for Project Cheap Jeep. Now that we have a Ford 9-inch in the rear, it's time to build a front axle on the Jeep, but with a twist.
Now this is where building an axle on the Jeep takes on a whole new meaning. Obviously, we want a Dana 44 full-width axle to match the rear, but if we swapped in a junkyard piece, we'd have to take these leaf springs and move them to the outside of the frame, because if we didn't do that, the pumpkin from that junkyard axle would actually sit right underneath this leaf spring.
Now the obvious solution would be to build a custom width 44, and this can be done by tearing down a junkyard 44 housing, cutting out the tubes and replacing them. But working on a budget isn't always about doing things the cheapest way. Sometimes it's about how you spend your money. Now this high pinion center section and new outer axle ends could make building your custom axle a lot easier.
Now the rear axle truly was built on the cheap, with a welded up carrier, a new set of gears, and stock parts throughout the rest of the assembly. Now the front is going to cost a little bit of money, but as you guys know, whenever you're talking about a custom width axle, it usually means a little bit of cash. Cha-ching! But how the money is spent will be what makes the difference here. And since we already have a perfectly good set of 44 outer knuckles and beefy high steer arms from SRC Precision Products, they will get reused on the new 44. With our width laid out on the floor, we can set both outer C's into position and then measure for the location of our solid axle center section. Then the 3 1/8 half-inch wall DOM tubing can be cut to the correct length and ground and then slid into the housing, easy as pie. No, it's not easy. Tip for the home viewer doing this at home, I think it was like $300 more just to get the tubes put on. Do that. Axle, please. Now the front axle, we honestly could have just welded up a carrier just like the rear. But instead, we're going to install an aux cable shifted locker assembly in it. Now, how does this install fit into our budget aspect? Well, when putting in the aux locker, it comes with a heavy duty diff cover as part of the locking mechanism. That way, you save money because the diff cover is included in the package. Now we've built a lot of axles here at Xtreme, so we didn't take you through this one step by step. But here's the basic numbers and info on our new Dana 44 front axle. The solid axle high pinion center section allows the drive shaft to enter actually almost above the leaf springs. That'll protect it when we're on the trail. Now it has an integrated leaf spring mount, so I was able to mount it really close to the passenger side of the truck. Now the outer C's are set up with a caster angle of 8 degrees leaning back, or positive caster. As for the steering, I simply cut down the aftermarket high steer kit we had in there before and sleeved it with some DOM tubing to make it wider. Now for the axles, we went ahead and measured and ordered some custom chromoly units from Alloy USA. But we really want to take this thing out before the end of the show, and we're not going to have time to wait. So I've done something that I honestly have no idea if it's going to work. I basically took a 30 spline old axle we had laying around the shop and sleeved it with a piece of DOM tubing and welded it onto the original outer. Now obviously this is not what you want to do if you want to go four-wheeling, but we want to take this thing out this afternoon and test everything we've done so far. These will probably break, but by then our new ones will be here and we'll just swap them out.
When you're building a custom axle, you don't want to stop at the pieces that hold it all together, do you? Well, Stage 8 is known for their locking fasteners like their header bolts, and are now offering locking setups for Dana 60 and Dana 44 axles. And the best part about it is they install just as easy as the stock pieces. And for as hard a wheeling we do, we'll never have to worry about our hubs coming loose on the trail.
Up next, the moment of truth for the cheap Jeep and its new axles when Xtreme 4x4 continues.
We're back on Xtreme 4x4 with some noticeable changes to our 82 CJ we lovingly call our cheap Jeep.
Yeah, don't forget to shoot the curb feeler, man. That helps us get around the rocks.
Curb feelers aside, our upgrades include beefier axles with a new Dana 44 up front and a Ford 9-inch out back. The sheer girth of these solid axles mean we can now feed the Jeep some serious power. And after a giant cloudburst dumped an inch on the trails while we were there, Ian would need to do some pedal mashing just to stay moving. Swampy trails are tough on any off-road tire, and we upsize our Interco Super Swamper boggers to 37s, which clean out easily thanks to the void between the lugs. We ditched the clutch in favor of a rebuild Torque Command 999 automatic transmission. And of course, our newly rebuilt transfer case with JB conversion 4-to-1 gear sets. Both make crawling up and over obstacles easy breezy.
All the difference in the world!
The RE Quadratech springs help prevent axle wrap under throttle bumps because of the reverse spring eye wraps. And with the TerraFlex revolvers front and rear, good articulation is not a problem. And as we close the book on our cheap Jeep, the receipts in our wallet show that we spent just under $8 grand. That's a reasonable budget for any gearhead whose love for off-roading is surpassed only by the desire to do it themselves. So go twist some wrenches.